Okay. Um, Now I'm trying this live video with the sound on. I didn't realize the sound was off, so third time's the charm here, folks. You can tell I'm really tired today. Okay, so I'm back here, and tonight's topic is what do you do when internal work is hard? It was originally going to be on how do you handle, thoughts that come up, and I am going to interweave that topic into it. But I decided to do this topic tonight or change the topic around a little bit because I've been feeling really tired today. I kind of I was doing my day work and things were going good and I'm writing away in between calls and all of a sudden I hit this wall. And at the end of work, I do a little bit more writing, and then after work is done, and then I decided to just go ahead and do my practice. And I did my practice, and I was feeling pretty tired there. And my wife came in and said, "Man, you look tired." I said, "I am tired. I'm really exhausted." I continued on and did my meditation, and that helped. And then I did some moving meditation, but I'm still feeling pretty tired. And this is one of those days where this is a good example of what happens when your internal work is hard, when the magic work is hard. What do you do when that happens? See, in a lot of occult culture, people talk about, you know, when everything's easy, when you're getting the results, when everything's coming together. And they don't really talk about those times when the work is hard, when you're doing it and you're not necessarily seeing overt results and you're struggling with it and you're trying to do the best you can, but it's not necessarily coming together the way you want, and maybe you feel bored and tired and you're just like, why am I even doing this? There are going to be times in your magical practice where you're going to feel that way. I felt that way at different points in my magical practice. Today I don't so much feel that way, I just feel tired. So be it. After this video, I'm just going to rest and relax and probably take it easy the next few days because I think that's what I really need. But I still want to speak to this topic because it's not addressed enough in magical practice. It's not spoken to in the way it ought to be. And when we're doing our magical work and we come across those moments where we hit the wall and things don't flow the way we want them to, we need to accept that and not fight it. Now, in one of the meditation practices I pursue, the teacher talks about this thing called the 70% rule. And he says basically, you do everything to within 70% of your capacity. You don't ever do 80, 90, 100, or try and go even further than that. And the reason why is because you don't want to exhaust yourself. You always want to leave a certain amount of reservoir left in whatever you're doing. And I think this is a wise rule because I think that, it is very easy to exhaust ourselves. And we see this occur a fair amount with people. I mean, you have workaholics, things like that, where they just work and they work and they work and they work until they're exhausted and they don't know their own limits. I used to be that way. I'm not so much anymore. But what happens when you hit this wall in your magical practice? What do you do? Well, I'm going to give you my answer, and it is my answer. It's not necessarily the right answer for you, but it's my answer, and it's right for me. When I hit that place where I'm feeling tired and exhausted or bored and depressed or whatever, and maybe I'm not getting those results that I want, I actually welcome that experience because what it really means is that it's a time where I need to seed my consciousness with the work that I'm doing. Now, what do you mean? What do you mean by that, Taylor? What do you mean seed your consciousness? Well, here's the thing. When you're doing work and you're getting results and things are magical and wonderful and amazing and everything else, it's an awesome feeling. But what people don't realize is that a lot of times that work is occurring on the back of days upon days where maybe you haven't necessarily seen an overt result. Where maybe what's happened is that you're just doing the work and you're not seeing anything necessarily occur. And what you don't realize is that's okay. You don't always have to have something occur. And a lot of times you won't. But what's happening is that in the background, that work that you're doing is actually seeding your consciousness, prepping you for that next big thing whenever it occurs. And when it occurs, and you're like, oh my gosh, it just seemed to happen without effort. Well, no, it happened with effort. It's just that all that effort occurred beforehand because you were doing that work when you were feeling bored or you were feeling tired or whatever else. And when you do this work, you want to simply do it, because if you don't do it and you give up, you're missing out on the realization that will occur. But here's the key that you also have to keep in mind. When you do the work, and let's say you're feeling tired and exhausted like I am tonight, you don't want to push yourself too hard. You don't want to hit that 80, 90, or 100% threshold. Instead, you simply want to respect where you are at. You do it within the capacity of what you are able to do. And don't get too stressed and worried, oh, what does this mean? Maybe I'm losing my edge or anything like that. No, you're not. You're just simply where you're at. And what people do not always recognize or address is the fact that it is perfectly okay to admit and acknowledge, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling exhausted, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling bored, this work is hard. Because guess what? The work is hard sometimes. The work is hard a lot of the time. And when you get caught up in the glamour of magic, in the glamour of meditation, you're going to flit from area to area because you're trying to keep that going. And that's when you're going to be hurting your practice. Because instead of simply sticking with it and doing the work and recognizing that, yeah, right now you feel what you feel, you're going to be like, well, I got to be on to that next big thing. I've got to have that next big occurrence. What's wrong with me? Why am I not experiencing that? Nothing's wrong with you. You're processing. You're experiencing. You're going deeper into the work. And that feeling of boredom is actually an invitation to go deeper. But it's hard. Because it's a test. Is it a test from the powers that be? Maybe. Is it a test from yourself? Definitely. It's not a test where you have to get an A or you know, pass with flying colors. It's just something that you have to stick with and trust. The most profound experiences that I've had in my work have generally occurred after periods where the work has been hard, where I have struggled with it. Now you guys know that I share my monthly journal where I write down my entries. And if you ever notice, I don't write every single day in that thing. Like I'll have like, you know, a day where I'm like da da da, and then I'll have a few days pass, and then da da da, and then a few more days, and then da da da. Well, here's what happens. In between those days, nothing much happened. I just did the work, and there was no gigantic result or amazing thing. I just did the work. Now I could write, on this day, nothing much happened. I could. I don't. I don't really see the point. But I know that nothing much happened. And that's okay. I'm okay with it. It doesn't make me less of a magician or a meditator or anything along those lines because it happens. When people get fixated on the results, that's when they hurt their practice. And here's where we'll weave in the original topic of tonight. The original topic was going to be on the thoughts and like what to do when you have thoughts occurring when you meditate. Well, this is a good example because a lot of people get caught up in trying to have a meditation experience where they have no thoughts, right? You're just supposed to not think of anything. Well, that's a stereotype one of meditation, and it's not. And while that is a state of being that you can experience, it's not always the most desirable state of being. It's a good example of getting stuck, fixated on a result. But second, let's say you do have racing thoughts when you're doing your meditation. This is actually the perfect opportunity for you to do something that's hard but worthwhile. And what's that hard thing? Acknowledge those racing thoughts and then dig deeper. And what I mean by that is not necessarily just start thinking those thoughts. It's just to simply be like, I'm thinking about this. And now I'm going to keep breathing and I'm going to go deeper. Well, what's really going on underneath those thoughts? What's the underlying emotion? Am I feeling panic? Am I feeling anger? Am I feeling love? Joy? It may seem odd that I would throw those last two in, but I want you to remember that any emotion can be at the center of a thought. You can be thinking happy thoughts about somebody that you love and care about, and that can be a distraction in meditation. And that's okay. But let's actually go deep. Let's find out what that underlying narrative is. Let's find out what's going on. Why are we getting distracted? Why is the work so hard right now when we want it to be so easy? The work is hard because we're human beings. We're fallible human beings. We burp, we fart, we make mistakes, we do all this other stuff. We get caught up in love, or we get riddled with anxiety. And all of these things are normal. And our work, the point of our work, isn't to somehow transcend our humanity and become perfect. The point of our work is to dig deeper. It's to experience these things and not become attached to them, to let go and yet learn from them, and to embody our experiences and become hopefully a little bit wiser for it, a bit gentler, a bit of a better human being in our regular interactions with ourselves and each other. And that's the thing that I think so many people miss out on and forget about doing this work. The big realizations, the results are wonderful, but they're not why you're doing this work at the end of the day. You're doing this work at the end of the day because it calls to you and it speaks to you, and it is the work itself. It is the work itself that is why you're doing. It's the process that is mediating through you what you're working with. That's why you do the work. The results are just roadmaps. They're just signs on a map. They're just indicating, are you going in the right direction? Do you need to change direction a little bit? Do you need to adjust and adapt? And sometimes when you go through a long stretch where you don't have any obvious result, that actually is an indicator you're going in the right direction. It's hard, but you're going somewhere. You're digging in deeper. You're really experiencing the work. And the results, the rewards, are so much more satisfying because you're truly opening yourself up to it. You're not getting fixated on the surface level, but you're truly allowing it to permeate your being and transform who you are, what you are. And I leave you with that in the hopes that as you do this work, you remember to stay humble, be open to what you experience, and at the same time not let the results define you. Let the work define you. Let the work speak through you, and trust the work, because it will truly transform you. And at the same time, it will remind you that you are but mortal. And that is something that I humbly and sincerely wish that more people would recognize. And I say it as somebody who's fallen for that trap of pride and sometimes been an arrogant ass and allowed himself to get so caught up in his own image. We all do it, and it's okay. Let's just recognize that, celebrate it, and learn from it, folks. Learn from it. And be humble. The work will speak to you and through you, and it will allow you to discover the hidden wonders of life, which aren't the big, flashy results. They're the little things. That moment of realization that you come away with where, yeah, the work was really hard, and yet I just feel this deep level of contentment and satisfaction that I did it. That sometimes is the best reward you could ever have. All right, thank you for watching, and Isaac, thanks for the comments. I really appreciate it. And to all of you, I'll see you next week.